3 years today. We'd had not slept the night before. And by this time we were at the airport, flying to Venice, meet up with the Globe Light Tour 2019. Dave Murphy, Lisa and Jack. Kind of exciting, kind of nerve-wracking. You know, I was still dealing with, and maybe still am dealing with, all those fears I'd picked up in 2018 after that event in Speaker's Corner. Ken West. The month that was to follow was the hardest month of my life. The most difficult thing I'd had to do since this. It was extremely challenging, extremely tiring, conflicting. Jason was very generous, and Robin very courageous in financing that van that we used. And individually people bring their own talents, but collectively there's little or no common ground or community, way I see it. Undoubtedly the being involved in that tour generated more support for my channel, and people actually were very generous over the months ahead in supporting me and my family, because it is over 3 years. It's 3 years today, of course, but we'd already been homeless for a month by the time we joined the tour. Funny enough, we'd spent the night before joining the tour, in exactly the same bed as I was last night. So my sister-in-law, she has been the biggest supporter. She's been there more than anyone else, giving up her bed so she sleeps on the sofa or whatever. And we've been here more than a dozen times in the 3 years since then. When I felt like I was going to have another child back in 2016, a flat earth baby, my commitment was to raise this child myself, and rather than hand him over to the state, the poor state. My commitment was to be there for him every day, and to be that influence that he needs to navigate this world. And up until the police raid in 2018, he had been having the most stable environment that I could imagine being able to provide for him. Outdoor time, trampoline time, learning in nature, in the forests, going to the parks, on the swings, and so on. And even after the police raid in October 16th, 2018, I tried not to let that massive invasion of myself and ourselves upset him, the trajectory. But here we are a year, after that, 1st of November, first day on tour. Spend more than an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours walking through Venice. Initially to find Adam Meakin and then find a place that we can, I can't remember the name, was it St. Mark's Square or whatever, very famous. And we try and set up there. The police are having none of it. So we set up somewhere else. Well, I speak to some locals, I think, and they said, yeah, why don't you try around there? Or maybe it was anyway, it doesn't matter. We end up finding this other place, and the rest is either on YouTube somewhere or being pulled down. Certainly everything that I did at that stage or recorded at that stage is being pulled down. I can't regret doing it because this is the journey we're supposed to be on, I suppose. And then trying to keep that promise of keeping, providing a stable platform for my little boy. Well, it started to kind of suffer right there and then on this tour. Little Alexander was 2.5, and all of a sudden spending most of his day trapped in a box, traveling at speed around Europe. I don't know, what was it, 20 something countries or 20 something cities in 25 days, something like that. 22 cities, I don't remember now. I remember we didn't go to Paris, and I remember the reason why. When Jason put me on that van, he said, by the way, I'd sort of I was hoping for an invitation to join the tour earlier in the summer of that year, 2019, but it wasn't forthcoming. Even though in 2018 I had been one of the standout speakers on that tour. There were political, internal issues, I should say, I think anyway, that had prevented that. But come us being homeless, because Andrea didn't really want to go on tour, us being homeless and us being stuck up in Scotland, Andrea relented and said, yeah, okay. And we'd seen Jason, at the Flat Earth event about a month earlier, 3 weeks earlier. And he'd said, hey, you guys still, would you be up for it? We were like, whoa, I can't really commit to that. Even though in my heart, I actually wanted to be at the beginning, from the start. Because I know my worth. But so, just 3 weeks before we became homeless, we had this conversation with Jason, which kind of had opened that door again, that I could join the tour if I wanted to. And Jason had said, if you join it, you'll be you'll be the guy running it, and as it happened with Dave Murphy sort of being, the lead speaker, or the only speaker really, for a time, it was going to be like a handing of the baton from Murphy to me. And, Murphy's a smart guy and he knows a lot of shit, but he's also got his own crap. That whole Hebrew Israelite bullshit. Fucking veganism or vegetarianism. That's a mistake. Go to a vegan conference and then tell them that the earth is flat. See how that goes. Veganism is very enlightened. And then you lose your teeth, your hair, your fertility. Very much a New World Order agenda. So I get invited to, after many other opportunities had been missed, I get invited to join this tour. And on the day of Paris, I say to my friends, I say, guys, you've overloaded the van. It's very difficult for my family, my child. My wife is threatening to jump off the van or leave me every second day, or every day sometimes. It's very difficult. You've overloaded this van. I don't think we've got the right mix of people on here. I think someone has to go, make space for someone new. And Roxanne, who was living on a completely different time clock, who'd come to join us for 1 or 2 nights, she absolutely flips out on me. There's no leaders, she says. There'll be no leaders. So someone who can make a statement like that is asserting leadership. No leaders. And she went fucking berserk. Went berserk. I had to take my son away from the environment because I didn't want him to see what went down. So I missed some of what went down, but it was ugly. Jason, after a few hours of this, said, I'm going to take her back to London. We're going to push off now. We'll miss Paris. You guys can do what you want to do. By that time, we'd had such a ding-dong of a morning. All of the crew, except me, I was like, we could probably still make it in there, right? Just go and do an hour or something. We had a long drive ahead of us the rest of the day, but the crew decided no. So we didn't do Paris. And we concocted a story. And then my friend Jack, because I say, oh, look, guys, someone who's not adding value at this point in time is Lisa. She's very tired. I think she needs to be the one to walk off. She didn't really want to. She had this bee in her bonnet of being the one to do the whole tour. She was having a relationship with Jack, and Jack said to me, if you kick her off the bus, I'm not going to drive. I'm getting off the bus. And for me at that point, that was like I was on my own. No one was willing to stand alongside and say, yeah, listen, we've got Dave and his little boy here and his wife, and they, their needs are a priority. That was what was promised. But no, there was a whole other energy that was coming on board, and I just had to suck it up. And when Jack blackmailed me and said, no, you can't make decisions like that. There's no leaders. I'm going to be the one that decides that she's not getting off the bus, and we will carry on as we are. So we pushed on, and I still did another 2 weeks or so after that. Very difficult weeks, and when the crew was down to just a few, it did work better, but having 8 people or whatever we were at that point in Paris on this small camper van, it's not as big as it looks on TV. Everyone who's ever been on it, after seeing it on YouTube or whatever, comments that it's not as large as it seems on camera. I like Lisa very much, by the way. It's not like she's a sweet being, with a good soul and so on. So is Jack, by the way, but he would go on to blackmail me or stab me in the back. One more time, I gave him an opportunity to join us in Portugal a year later, and he went and fucked me up there by talking shit, poison pilling me to the guy whose land it was that I was on. I normally give someone a second chance, but fool me 3 times, twice, that would be shame on me. Jason would go on to lend me his camper van for about 3 months, which was one of the kindest things that anyone has done for me in these years. So I'm not calling him out or anything like that for being who he is, because his heart is really good too, and he has put everything so much into trying to upturn this apple cart. He got very much caught up in the face nappy nonsense. I even watched him get arrested by the clowns in uniform, or clowns in clown suits. But back then, 3 years ago, we all had this idea. I'm sure most of us, anyway, if we're honest, would say that what we were doing was going to awaken the masses, not the millions, of course, that Roxanne liked to crow about at the time, but it was going to set a candle burning in many corners of Europe. It really excited the American crew at that time. They were very interested because there was nothing of that sort happening in America, which actually would be one of the best places to do something like that, because the language barrier. We had globeli.co.uk or globeli or something, because we didn't want the guys doing the stickers didn't want to use the term flat earth as the main banner, I think. And in Europe, globeli is stuck together as one word, looks like globally. People would have no fucking idea, and we'd have clowns like Nathan Oakley and whatnot. Their pictures, on the side of the thing. That's really gonna fucking, people go, oh yeah, that's Nathan Oakley. Let's go and listen to him being a shit to other human beings. This is my ego talking. This is my anger. Is this me just expressing the shit that I don't speak about on YouTube because I'm trying to be polite to my fellow brother and sister out there? I don't know, but whatever I'm doing at the moment doesn't feel like it's making too much difference. I'm grateful for those people who've written me and said, you have inspired me in ways. and those who have been moved to provide us with accommodation or funding to continue whatever this path is that we're on. I'm not feeling it at the moment, you know. I'm not feeling it. Raising a little boy, raising a person, raising a human being, you know, a soul, a new soul in this world is extremely challenging. You know, there's parts of me that are grateful for the lack of home, but there's parts of me that are sad for the stress that it's brought to my wife and my children and my extended family. Would I want to be in Martin Kenny's camp, like in the forest, away from all of this madness? Part of me, yeah. Part of me, yeah. Of course, I don't agree with their diet special needs, but, you know, being on a hill somewhere undisturbed as much as possible by this insanity is a really tempting kind of thing, you know. A few times over the years, 3 years, I've thought, shit, maybe I should have taken Martin up on that offer right at the beginning. Now, if I want to go and visit Martin, I have to send an application form. Once upon a time, I could have just walked in there as the head gardener. No leaders on flat Earth, though, eh? So no one can take any kind of leadership role. That's what I say. The irony of that statement. You see, I was talking to Alex and Michael about this recently, actually, because he's a guy who likes to run solo, and I don't know. As I was saying to him, I don't know that we're meant to. You know, it's great to be a good musician and so on, and but if you play in an orchestra, then you do need a conductor, you know, to make sure that every ego is going to blow at the right moment. And not only that, if you're going to be in an orchestra, you actually need someone to arrange the other shit. Like, how about an auditorium so that you can fill it with people who are going to have to pay a ticket office and be ushered in and fed some food and, you know, seen off the premises at the end of the night, etc., etc., etc. A lot of musicians ain't interested in that, are they really? And it's really not their remit. It's like, you come play the music and I'll do the other shit. Or we'll get someone else to do that, someone else to build the stage, someone else to do the lighting, this one to do that. We can come together and collab on what is the right lighting and what is it you're looking for, blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, it needs to be organized by someone. There needs to be a crew commander. Let me tell you, if I had not been crew commander on the 3rd of October 1987, people would have died around me, including me. I was recounting to my family the other day a story that I'd never told them. Just while we were driving somewhere in France or Spain, I can't remember, but I saw something that made me remember a moment on that day, about the middle of that day, where an RPG, a rocket-propelled grenade, was fired directly at my vehicle. It was one of those sort of moments in the battle that really stuck with me, because the RPG, when these things are happening, your brain is working so fast. And as the RPG is flying towards me, I remember thinking, wow, it's just a black dot. The RPG tube and grenade is green. The fins and so on is green. But the RPG doesn't fly as fast as a bullet, by the way. So don't think that I'm being Superman when I tell you this story. An RPG's speed is like 100 miles an hour or something. It's not super fast. But I had to watch this thing for what seemed like a while as it approached me, and then my legs gave in. I realized I needed to kind of get low because it was coming right at my head. So I dropped back into my turret. Now, my turret, I'll quickly, if you don't mind, show you. I don't know if I've got a photo here that will elucidate. This is the turret. That's the turret there with the 90mm cannon sticking out the front. This is the crew commander. This guy has died that day, Adrian Hind. He's the crew commander. This is the gunner. This guy, he lost. This is Stompy. He lost a few fingers when the tank round struck their vehicle over here. There's a guy called Glenn Woodhouse in the driver's seat. He, I think he's in Canada, lost part of his face and some of his hand. Yeah, the crew commanders, typically in battle, we would not be this high out. That would be insane. But there is a Browning machine gun mounted here as well, so I would use that for targeting and so on. We were generally instructed to go into combat with our hatches down, so the gunner's hatch was always down during combat. I, on the 3rd of October, was very much up out of the turret like this. So I'm about this high out, not as high as Adrian is. And I'm watching this RPG fly towards my head. And I drop down, and as I drop down, I look above me, look back up into the sky, and I see the RPG just lazily spinning and rolling past, going past and missing the target. And when I wrote this book, and up until this moment a few weeks ago, I had never considered that the guy who fired the RPG was firing it at my head rather than at my vehicle, because his range was only, I would say, 200 to 300 meters. That's not very far for an RPG, and the vehicle is a massive target, so I would have expected the round to be lower. We did get hit by them. We got hit by quite a lot of stuff, but I would have expected the round to be lower. It struck me that the guy, it was like, wow, was the guy actually shooting his RPG at my head? Because if you take out the crew commander, you take out the vehicle. That's a fact. So my gunner and driver would pull out of battle if I was wounded. Such I did get hit by shrapnel later in the day, and when I was hit, the crew were like, "Oh, you okay? We're gonna carry on." Like, okay, no, I'm fine. It seems okay, But I'd been hit in the back. Bits of shrapnel that they made it cut out later that day. We needed to have a crew commander, and the crew had to trust me. I saw my driver, David Corey, when I went back to South Africa in 2014, partly on a book tour. and a reunion with my squadron. And and he said to me, Dave, if I ever had to go back to war, it would only be with you as crew commander, which is nice. I'm sure other gunner drivers might have said similar things to their own crew commander. You like what you know. But it was nice of him to say that. We didn't really get on that well as youngsters. He was new to my crew. Partway through the year, he came onto my crew. He wasn't my original driver at the beginning of '87. And he felt miffed at having been moved to my crew. He'd previously been in one of the command vehicles. Life was much cushier on the command vehicles, as usual. And my gunner, Herbert Zeely, I saw for the first time in 35 years or whatever it is. I saw him last year. He's the guy I left the Mercedes with, the Merc that the Flat Earth farmer Francois gifted to me. I gifted to my gunner, Herbert Zeely, who needed a car. Herbert Zeely is a scarred and troubled man from his experiences of life and what he saw down the periscope. Because he's the one pushing the switch. I give the target. He pushes the cannon, the 90mm cannon, which, by the way, is a round about that large, maybe round and that long. We did destroy tanks with it. He said to me, Dave, there's only one way I would go back to battle, and that's with you as a crew commander. Now, we're all old men now, and going to battle is probably more like a wistful kind of, wow, how nice, we could do that, blah, 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 but it's all bollocks. The war was staged. The battles were preordained in a way, which is why I truly believe now that the battle on the Lomba, the day on the 3rd of October when we met the 47th Brigade, not for the first time, but certainly that we'd met them full on, and we took on the 3 squadrons of tanks, and the whole brigade was militarily destroyed that day by my unit, by Charlie Squadron and 6-1 Mechanized Battalion, which was, the unit that we were part of. It was destroyed that day. It's a matter of historical fact. But on that day, we did such damage that everybody, in my memory of it, everybody thought we need to kind of press on. We're hearing that this other brigade is mopping up the survivors and they're starting to move north, etc., etc. And we're like, right, let's get over the River Lomba. We've been fighting here for 6 weeks to get over this river. Let's go. And we get to give them 5 days off. So I laterally start to think, well, why would we at the time we were confused by that. We didn't understand it. And on the first day that we get sent back towards the front line, my squadron, Charlie Squadron, with the exception of this little man here, the captain, we gets dispatched on like a little mission, a little side mission. So we're separated from the main unit, 6-1 Mech, and we get separated, and we're 15 vehicles. I think we're moving some logistics vehicles, and we couldn't move much during the daytime because we didn't have air cover, and so about this time in the morning, we're like, oh, it's getting light. We've been moving. We haven't got to our target area. We're going to have to pull off and get instructions, maybe wait here for the day to end or whatever. So we pull off this dirt track and take cover under trees. And 15 or 20 minutes later, not that long later, not long enough for a crew to be scrambled, MiG fighters to be scrambled, they fly right over our heads. And now it was unusual because Normally when we saw planes, the MiGs and those looking for us, they would be up at about 10,000 feet. Down, and so high enough out of range, any risk to themselves, and obviously with a bird's eye view over a large section of area to look for any movement. On this occasion, we weren't moving, hadn't been moving for 15, maybe 20 minutes. There was nothing to give. We're in densely forested area. Nothing to give away our position, but they fly right overhead of us, and we were like, "Fucking hell, man!" They were so close that you see them before you hear them. And so they've come out of nowhere, and we've actually seen the pilots' faces. They were so close to us, treetop height. And we're like, shit, hey, and we hadn't even dug ourselves holes in the ground, which was our normal operating practice. We didn't like doing it much, but we had to dig holes in the ground, foxholes, so because we were bombed quite regularly by artillery or planes. So we hadn't done that because we were sort of hoping to get on the move again. We'd been traveling all night. Guys were making a cup of coffee. A pal of mine, Wayne Mills, he goes from his vehicle to another friend's vehicle for a cup of coffee, actually, and in so doing saves his own life, because less than a minute or two later, minute and a half later, we are then faced with these same planes coming back over, and I'm standing with Herbie, the gunner, in a bit of a clearing. Our vehicle's off to my left, and I just see these big parachutes, red and white parachutes, opening behind these massive fucking bombs, 500-kilogram bombs. And we just both gawped at this for, an eternity. And then I grabbed him and ran towards my vehicle, 15, 20 meters maybe. And as I pulled it, these heavy doors on the side of the thing on the vehicle, as I pull them shut, the whole world just erupts. The explosion was so close to my vehicle, it ripped the engine plates, the soft metal firewall plates off their mountings. But that was from the concussion. The force of the explosion was going in the direction we'd been looking. It was going in the opposite direction, 180 degrees behind us, and my friend Wayne's crew was still around his vehicle, which just got shredded. We had steel had punched holes through one side and gone out the other side, and in so doing, Fricky gets peppered, and we slowly watch him die over the next couple of hours before a helicopter can come in and casevac him. And Gary, who was the gunner on that vehicle, he loses his leg. I remember carrying the stretcher and watching how crazy that this leg and foot were moving completely different of each other. It was just because he had like a tiny thread of material holding, like an Achilles tendon or something, holding his leg together with his foot. We were 19. And, that night, because we were back in sort of we were back in action again that night. I was pep talking some of the guys that we would still need to carry on fighting. We had to continue this thing that we were on. I have this suspicion that my squadron was being targeted that day on purpose, that we were paying some kind of penalty for having overstepped the mark in combat. We'd really destroyed this brigade. It's a matter, as I said, of military record. The 47th Brigade, you can look it up, 3rd of October 1987. We destroyed them, and I now believe that because of the staged nature of these conflicts, modern Ukrainian, Russian thing, the staged nature of these, that there are only certain outcomes that are required in order to attain a certain military or political objective. And in this case, Cuba and Russia, there was a Russian general, I think, that was raked over the coals for this defeat. But they had been embarrassed, actually. Cuba made a big thing. Fidel Castro was making a big thing about his military prowess. To be fair, he probably had a better military arsenal behind him than the South Africans, because the South Africans were pariahs on the world stage. They were making a lot of their own military equipment with the help of Israel. And so, yeah, some of the stuff we captured had, I remember some Browning, machine guns they were 1985 date stamped, and we were active now in 1987. So they were 2 years old, and the Brownings on mine, there's 2 Brownings on our system, the 7.62. They were 1948, just after the Second World War. So, we weren't, we weren't that well placed. However, we were extremely well trained, and we did something that was unexpected, and we embarrassed the Cubans. And so I think South Africa had to pay some kind of penalty. And that's what this event was, because it makes no sense. It made no sense to me at the time, but in this last few years, I've been able to consider the possibility that even that was, it was like okay, we want you guys there at this point. I have to allow that it's possible that there were spotters near to us, and they've kind of radioed in, oh, we've just got a squadron of groups here, this is their position. But these planes, the first flyover was directly overhead, and the next flyover was the releasing of the bombs. There was 2 planes, 4 bombs, 2 of them within our lager of vehicles, and 2 went further on down into the forest and detonated without harm to any of us. It was just too perfect. It was just too perfect. It was almost as if someone had a sending device on one of the vehicles, because we were carrying, so I just want to share quickly this strange anecdote. So I am an insignificant member of this battalion. My squadron, Charlie Squadron, was naughty. We weren't the best boys in the unit by any stretch of the imagination. Maybe we didn't take it seriously as seriously as the infantry boys. I don't know, but we weren't like the superstars of the unit. There's another guy, Major Lotta, who still today claims that it was his boys who did the final coup de grace on that day, which is bullshit. By the time that his boys went and led the charge through, it was after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, by which time most of my squadron, more than half of my squadron, the 12 vehicles, were incapacitated due to damage, etc., including mine. Mine was just that the radiator was blown out by friendly fire, and 6 of the 7 tires that the vehicle has, there's a spare tire on the roof that was flat, and 5 of the running 6 tires that we had were punctured from shrapnel and whatnot. They're built in with a run flat rubber inside, so you can continue to work with them on flat tires. I don't even think we were aware of all the flat tires until we got stopped by by the afternoon. We pulled back, and then what happened after that was the few working vehicles in my squadron joined up with this other company, B Company and Bravo, and they go through and flush. But by that point, they're meeting absolutely no resistance. The radio reports I'm hearing is that the tanks are driving into the river, trying to cross the river by driving into the river. And then there's one tank has tried to drive over his other tank that got stuck to try and get through the river and fallen off. And a lot of these hulks are still there. You know, guys now go on tours to see how this all played out. Because you can't move these 50-ton wrecks without a lot of money and manpower, you know. And so, you know, my where was I threading that? So my unit wasn't all that. My squadron wasn't all that popular, you know. But the following morning, because we were down 2 of our 3 lieutenants, the corporals, or maybe it wasn't because of that, but because of what we'd achieved the day before, the corporals are invited, which is what I was, to the battle group meeting the following morning. And I'll never forget the moment when this Commandant Smith walks up to the operations board, where he's got these 4 brigades, Angolan brigades, in theatre around us. And he walks up to the board and takes this marker, it happened to be black if my memory serves me, and he takes this marker, round magnetic marker, off the board, and he just goes woof. He says, as of today, 47 Brigade fails, no longer exists as a military unit. And the second in command, a guy called Donnie Lass, a guy who I admired very much, died of cancer some years ago. But he came up to us and was shaking our hands. His eyes were like, just, you know, he was like, whoa, what you guys achieved yesterday was something incredible. And you know, so aside from that moment, my squadron wasn't particularly like the golden boys of the unit. So I write this book, and in 2014 I go on a little book tour of South Africa, and who turns up at the book tour? One of the places in Johannesburg. Well, Bock Smith, the commandant, the guy who was the big cheese, and as a 19-year-old boy, he might have only been 30 odd at the time, but he was like this god that you never kind of got, you know, he was headmaster on steroids, you know, and maybe a good tactician or whatever. I'm not going to blow any smoke up his ass. Here, this guy turns up in my boat. I'm like, whoa, Bock Smith, nice to meet you again, sir. I might have even called him that. So he comes and looks at me and says, can I take one of these? I give him a copy of the book, and he goes, I think we were at a bar somewhere, or at a pub or something. I was outdoors talking to guys, and he disappears for 15 minutes, and I see him at one point like just furiously looking through the book like this, and he comes back to me a little later and shakes my hand and says, yeah, and I'd like to, you know, do a little talk. And he gives a little spiel to the guys that are there, the assembled veterans, and it's all good. And then, you know, obviously over the years ahead, all this kind of possibility starts to emerge for me, and I start to think again, why was he so interested? What was he looking for? Because his face when he arrived was not one that was that friendly. But after he'd kind of leafed through the book and what have you, so I thought, oh well, I hadn't written anything too shitty about him or anything like that. Not that he could have found that, you know, if I'd written that in such a short amount of time. But oh look, this is my sort of sketch of how it might look. This is the 47th Brigade. This is the Lomba River. This is Group 1. This is my squadron, Charlie Squadron. And these 4 vehicles here would be my troop. Yeah. So we were on this flank, and eventually through the course of the day I start bending in like this. I'm not really listening. I'm not very good at listening to the commands here. I feel like I'm making progress here, and I start getting deeper and deeper into this field here, which is how I end up getting shot from behind, because these guys have not followed me around. My troop are moving around like this. This commandant, he was looking for something in the book, and I don't know what it was that he was looking for. He never said. But I start to wonder about it in this last year or three, that it wasn't that he was wanting to check whether someone hadn't tipped me off that what happens after the 3rd of October is interference from outside. Because, you see, tactically, we'd been given a brief, I suppose, which was to stop this unit, to stop them from getting across the Lomba River. And we'd been involved in that for about 6 weeks before this all kicks off and we start pushing north again. And then we hold off for 5 days. On the 5th day, on the 8th of October, we move, and my squadron, who happened to have done all the damage on the 47th Brigade, gets smacked directly by planes. It was the only time in the 3 months that I was in theatre that we got hit directly. That my squadron got hit directly, I should say, by bombs. There might have been raking fire, but not bombs like that. And over the coming weeks, we kind of engage in a retreating enemy, and never make any significant military kind of impact on them. Our South African tanks, we aren't considered tanks. We're armored, but not tanks. They are invited into theatre for the first time since World War II. And they too don't really do the damage. In fact, they leave 3 tanks behind, and I really feel like these 3 tanks were left behind because we never left any tanks of our units. Adrian's vehicle got towed away when it was destroyed on the 3rd of October. And the one that was destroyed on the 8th of October was also towed away. I mean, they are only 20 tons, so they're not as heavy as the 50-ton tank, and therefore much easier to remove in theatre. But that they lost 3 tanks on one day stinks a little bit, because those tanks were trophies that the Cubans used to say, look how we are destroying the South Africans. The South Africans spend the next 6 weeks chasing these other 3 brigades north towards Quito Carnival, and we fail to stop them from getting to Quito Carnival. And then what begins to happen is the siege of Quito Carnival. And at the end of my national service, 2 years ended in December, we were offered to stay on another year, and some money to stay on another year, and I said no thanks. I'd done my 2 years of national service, and that had been more than enough. And so I'm stepped down, and we hand over our kit to these fresh-faced boys that are coming up into hell, and they then get involved in mainly stalemate activities over the coming months, which then later Nelson Mandela famously coins the phrase that was the death of apartheid, was the siege of Quito Carnival, and then the South African defeat there, And of course, I never paid any attention to any of this, because once I walked out of the army, I never did anything to do with it at all. I had nothing to do with it at all. If post came to my house, my mother, I remember her calling me saying, I've got some letter here from the military. I said, put in the bin. I'm not interested. I've done more than my bit. And then I find out later that it's obviously all theatre designed to keep the Angolans, the South Africans, the Namibians, Southwest Africans as it was known then, under the control of this system, And the best way to control us is to keep brother and sister at pit against each other. And it's worked so well, which I guess brings me around to flat Earth, because even in flat Earth, it's there are camps, there are groups, there are gangs. Some people have been extremely supportive, while others have done everything that they can to slow me down. There's well-known flat earthers who have probably never mentioned me on their channel. Never gone, hey, why don't you go and sub that guy, Dave? He talks a good talk, and he's got his heart on his sleeve, and I may not agree with everything that he says, but you might find it appealing. I won't name and shame on that, but I know that there's people out there who have not done that. But if it makes you feel any better, my squadron, pretty much every one of them has walked away from me since I talked about 9/11 flat Earth. Evolution is a lie. All these Christians, they love their evolution. It's a weird thing. I could never get my head around that, Christians loving evolution. How does that work? Christians loving a globe Earth, Big Bang. How does that work? And flat Earth. While I'm having a rant at everybody, flat Earth Christians is, as far as I'm concerned, as ego-ridden as are the vegans, as are the globalists who insist that Elon Musk is the savior of humanity. I hope you've seen my video on that. I'm not really into transvestigation, but fuck me, that's not real, right? What is that torso of his that I show you on that? The only photos of the man topless. I say the man. The only pictures of them topless are of what looks like some kind of that movie where they had the guys, I suppose it was Arnold Schwarzenegger, there was a guy that kind of comes out of his chest, it grows out of his chest. Well, it looks a bit like that. It looks a bit like there's space for something underneath that body armor that he's wearing on the beach. I see people all kind of, oh, no, he's bought Twitter. Well, I can tell you, that's all part of the stage. And if people think that the guy doesn't have any money, it's not his money. It's NASA's money. It's the dark ops, black ops, fucking made up finance bullshit. Before we went into Angola to the war, a senior general came to visit us and said, guys, we are looking for something called a SAM-1. I think that was SAM-8 anti-aircraft missile system. It's a massive thing. It's 3 big vehicles, and controller, launcher, and the truck that carries the projectiles. If we just get the handbook for that thing, just the handbook, the Americans will pay us $1 million. This is back in 1987. And if we can find one of these SAM-8 missile systems intact, it'll pay for the war. On the 3rd of October, we injured or captured 3 of these systems. And so I tried to find out when I was doing the book, where did they end up? Because, the story was the Americans really wanted the tech. Well, apparently those on the inside say they were shipped off to Israel, which is America, I suppose. Yeah, I don't see, I guess I don't see the, and I'm obviously having a shit morning, which is why I'm fucking piling this all on you. And I don't give a fuck what you do with it. Because I'm tired of being the fucking, oh yeah, you know, push over this guy. He's, you know, easy to push over kind of thing. And I just put all my energy out there and hope that a handful of people will reach in and kind of, you know, help me on this crusade, as it were. But let me tell you, people who've supported me and then found out I'm speaking against their religion, in this case it's mostly Christians, they walk away. Walk away. Oh, you're my brother, you're my brother. Oh, you don't believe Jesus died for your sins and you have to follow the Jesuit fucking thing. Oh, you don't think you shouldn't be eating meat? No, I can't help you anymore, you know. We're so full of bullshit, so full of our own fucking ego of what, you know, what this place is and who we should be and so on. Like, I need to be inclusive of all of those little special interest groups. They're not little. Special interest groups, the Christians and the vegans. Don't speak about this, you know. No. It's okay for those Christians to say, you're not going to get there because you're not fucking Jesus enough. Or the vegans to say, you're not going to get there because you're not, because this meat is lowering your vibration. And you're not going to get there either. Who else is in the special interest group? Oh yeah, I've been listening to this archaic Brashears. Still think he's a cop. If he's not, I have to, you know, eat humble pie and one day, you know, make an apology, I suppose, for saying that. But you know, I saw a video of him the other day saying, well, okay, it's a few months old, but he's like, oh, these flat earthers, they fucking blah, 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 blah. Like, it's like, okay, so you're smart enough to know that every element of your history has been fabricated and controlled by misinformation, you know, Zachariah Sitchin and all this shit. You're smart enough to know that, but no, don't talk to me about the science. No, they haven't fucked with my science. You know, give me the pills, eh? Put the nappy on, take one in the arm. Science is fucking believable. Here's an interesting fucking story. The other day, we're house sitting, and I get this guy at the gate saying, I'm here. You are living in an area for, I don't think I can even say this out loud because YouTube will fuck me over again. But we have an avian flu going on in our this area here, so we are going around to all those people who have chickens to check on them. And we've been registered. We're told that there's some chickens here. So I'm like, yeah, but you're not invited, so you can't come in. And then the guy is like, he says to me, oh look, okay, I can come back another time. You know, you know, when the owners are back and so on. It says, I know there's 3 chickens here. So I was like, okay, if you know that, in my mind I'm thinking, if he knows that, then obviously the owners have already been communicating with him. And the owners had told me about this little area-wide thing. So I let the guy in, and to my annoyance, he has a look at them, because he said, I just want to check, he says, I just want to check that there's 3 and they're alive. I said, which reminds me of the time the police tried to bash in the door 2 years ago, saying, oh, we want to just check that your little boy has 2 arms and 2 legs. Fucking sick bastards. Fuck, they've got some sick minds out there, man. They watch too much Netflix. I bet all those coppers sit there with their fucking dick in their hand watching CSI and going, yeah, look how smart we are, fucking hell. Anyway, I let this guy in, and I say, here they are. They're in the run, which I you know, because I think normally they'd be allowed out in the garden, and I had been, you know, because it's not my place. The owners said we leave them in the run at the moment because of this flu. So I wasn't going to, you know, upset that apple cart. They're in the run. He takes a picture of them. He doesn't ask me if he can take a picture of them. He just whips out his camera and takes a pic. again, that wasn't what he fucking said. He didn't say, I need to come in and take a photo of them. He said, I need to say, come see they're alive. Well, you've just fucking seen they're alive, mate. Now you take a photo on my property. Okay, not my property, but in this, it's like, oh, well, we can do whatever the fuck we like. It reminds me of the time I went to offload bullshit, down to the dump, local council dump. Well, we were emptying our house, and they were getting more and more militant at the dump. And they come there with a body camera at the door. Oh, well, we need to check what's in your car. This guy comes up to the car. He doesn't even ask me. He opens the back door. The invasion of your personal space is ongoing, and it'll continue to go on. So this guy, turns out his name is Keith. He said, because I said to him, listen, I don't trust the government, mate. So, that's why I'm being arsey with you. And you're representing it right now. He said, oh, well, you should talk to my wife. She's super, awake. During this last, needle and thread bullshit of 2020, we didn't really buy into it. We didn't go along with it. I joked with my sons, can you imagine when I do a fart in the bedroom, in the room, how quickly it leaves my trousers and all that. I'm like, oh, that's a good one, man. I'd come up with that myself, I'd use the lift and said how quickly it leaves through your underpants and your trousers and fills the whole space, just like one of those gas giants out in space. So he's like, yeah, no. So I'm thinking, okay, we're onto something here. So I'm like, so then what you're doing right now is part of the board. No. Well, I was at university or whatever, and because he's a vet, and we were taught that, the Black Plague, or one of them, I can't remember now, occurred. What they did was they did tests on some of those 300-year-old, rotten bodies, or whatever's left of them, and they found avian something or other, some kind of avian connection, which is the link that says it was the birds gave the man. Well, that's also bullshit. That's also bullshit. But because he learned that at his school, it's okay for the doctors to have gotten misinformation, but his information was not twisted and fucked up, and that you got to be worried about your chickens. Funny enough, he happened to be friends with the senior medical officer in Melbourne, I believe, who had advised the government, based on his indoctrination, to call the lockdown, the original lockdown. And of course, they still believe all the horse poop that's running around inside this grey matter. But he did say that later on, he recommended to the politicians that it was time to. They'd gone hard in Melbourne, hadn't they? They'd gone hard, lock it all down. But later, when they realized something, not that they're talking shit, but when they realized something, he advised the politicians that it was time to let them out of their cages. But the politicians wouldn't do it. They extended the L-downs. So it's interesting because even that guy, he'll go, okay, so something was wrong with that, but not see at all that all of these things are conflated. They're all part of the same germatic, and the nobbling of, mankind's, thing, and it's dark. We are all, I think, most of us are all seeking light and love and so on, and yet we are fucking at war with each other because I'm not Christian, vegan, black. We are at war with each other. It's a little bit of a mess, don't you think, friends? It's a little bit of a mess. think I'm running out of... Has this been an hour? Yeah. I might be running out of memory on my phone anyway. An hour. Got a 5-hour drive today. We're going to do another house sit for 2 weeks. This rant, hopefully not too many egos were bruised in the making of this video. I myself am seeking for a purpose such that I am no longer, out in the cold. And perhaps it's just my ego, but in my world, I think that having met a lot of flat earthers, I am one of the most useful speakers on the flat earth, actually. And do I feel that that's taking me somewhere? At the moment, no. And there are days when I think, okay, if I just quietly slip away and go and find myself a fucking day job somewhere doing bullshit, then that's going to be the best outcome for me. But on the night of the 8th of October, I never wanted to go to war. I don't even care for the army. I wasn't like I wanted to be in the army or wanted to play soldiers. But I had to do 2 years national service according to the law. Because I was white and I was 17. And so, I, despite that, and despite being kind of fearful in, it obviously, for my life, and, we were in battles, quite a lot of battles, but the one on the 3rd of October was the one that seared into my mind so much because it was all day and it was relentless. We were under attack continually through the course of that day, I'd only drop into the hatch if the bomb went off near me, or the vehicle started to sound like a popcorn machine, because then the AKs were popping at us, and of course, I'm a soft target. My vehicle can handle the AK-47, no problem, but the not the flesh. But on the 8th of October, after having had a horrific day, I was still geeing my boys up to go forward, and then there was only one way to go forward, and that was as a crew, as a squadron, and as a battalion, united with a common cause, and at the moment there is not that unity. I see squabbling with boys, over what version of science applies, and I've unpacked a few of my dirty laundries here today, so I apologize if I've upset anybody, but I'm only speaking my truth, and it has been, well, in the case of the Globe Light Tour, 3 years, that I've never spoken about this, except the other day when I was talking to Alex Michael and Stellium Mike. I think I told them about it the other day, the story about Paris. But we are disunited, and this is by design. We are all in these know-it-all camps of you can't ejaculate anymore. That's another thing that I don't buy into, by the way. My grandparents were of that same view, by the way. My mother's grandparents were of the view that and they used to be laughed at because their view was that sex was only for procreation. That was the only time you engaged in it. You didn't need to. So, which for me, I'm not for porn, and I'm not for fapping, which is apparently over masturbating. I'm not for that. But if someone gets into that, then that's their thing, and you've got to work all of these things out yourself. But yeah, it's just another one of those little like, oh, you're not clean enough if you ejaculate, you got to save that. And people are in the world of hero worship, And so maybe it's time I stop giving a fuck about what people think. Go, this is what's happening. This is what's going down here. And if you're not going to fucking wake up to that, and you're going to carry on sucking the dick of the vegetarian, well, I didn't need to say that. I'm sorry. I do feel a little bit annoyed this morning. Forgive that. Forgive me. But if you're going to keep, going, oh, this is the way forward, we've got to go through this and we've got to go through that, then you're going to be led like lambs to the slaughter, vegetarian or not. Guess what? They use a goat to lead sheep to the abattoir. Sheep are nervous, but they'll trust the goat. Who's the goat? Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and so don't we see that also in truth seeking? There's these goats that are great at leading the sheep, even if the goat doesn't know it's being used in that way. It's altogether possible that an Elon Musk character actually believes that even though he's having to mislead people, he's doing it for the best interest of humanity. And that there may come around one day to be a truth on that, but I don't yet see that. For me, it is part of the dark agenda. Some say it's to do with, some kind of male need to control and run everything, and even nature, because nature requires the feminine very much. So yeah, it's just I got fuck all left to lose now. For me, getting 100 views on a video that I post is almost a waste of my time. It's almost a waste of my time. The amount of energy and what have you to, it's like it is a bit of a drug, because I admit to enjoying receiving comments from supporters and well-wishers or friends, and I enjoy that. I enjoy what I've been gifted through the effort that I put in. But let me tell you, these 3 years of my life have been the hardest. And the fact that I'm homeless is not anybody's responsibility or fault. It is it was a decision by me to step away from the system at whatever cost, but I didn't think it would cost quite as much as it has. It's been extremely difficult for Andrea, extremely difficult to be dragged along, kicking and screaming sometimes, on this journey, and extremely hard on this little boy that I'm trying to raise the best way that I can. We had the system hounding us recently, a few months ago now, to do with his education or some bullshit. It's like, didn't you guys write to me when we refused the birth certificate and say he's going to have trouble getting education without a birth certificate? And now you're pestering me about his education. I'm thinking about false prophets. I hope that I am never a false prophet. I hope that. And I desire never to be a false prophet. I haven't shared all of the shit that I've been through. One, because it's like, wow, it's kind of so hard to talk about the suffering that you're going through. And, it might be one thing to confide in a friend over a coffee what you're going through. It's another thing altogether to put it out here in the wankosphere. Again, I shouldn't have said that. I am feeling a little annoyed. It has never been my intention to be a misleader and to allow my ego to to get in the way of delivering truthfully to people what I see, and trying very much to alert those who have yet to see. Yeah. But maybe it's hard to know what part of ego is essential and what part of ego is non-essential and overplayed in this construct. By the way, I am fascinated by the archaic Jason Brashear's content. And you have to admire the depth and breadth of the man's research and his ability to put it all, tie it all together. So I can't step away from that, and I have been interested to gain more understanding of what it is that he is offering. And we must remind ourselves that the Illuminati card game offers that the flat Earth is something, but it's really just one card in a deck of 52. I need to wrap this up, but we are on I won't be able to load it immediately because we don't have enough Wi-Fi around here. But we are on a soul journey. I think what Brashears is saying about that is what I've been saying a long time, and others I've learned this from. And that we are on a soul journey, and the soul journey is an ongoing thing. He's got a kind of timeline in which 2040 or later another 130 8-year cycle or something on from that is going to be the final event for this construct, at which point there is a melting or a shifting or an implosion or it goes away. And by that point, the soul that you're carrying, the soul that you are in this current avatar, that internal soul goes somewhere and does something, and the game's over, or you've had your chance to kind of move up a scale or down a scale or whatever, and maybe that's all good, but I do think we have to do the inner work to change the outer world. Do we have to change the outer world